Somewhere on a construction site in ancient Jerusalem, a boy is dying. Not from illness, not from injury, from something no physician in Solomon's court could name. The boy is one of Solomon's most skilled workers. He has been building the temple for months. He is by all accounts extraordinary, strong, talented, beloved by the workers who labor alongside him. And every day, without explanation, he grows thinner. His color is wrong. His strength is leaving. He arrives at the site each morning visibly weaker than the day before. Solomon's physicians examine him. They find nothing. The boy himself can offer no explanation. He knows only that something visits him in the night, that there is a draining, a specific felt extraction that he cannot describe in ordinary terms and cannot prevent. This is where the testament of Solomon begins, not with wisdom, not with philosophy, not with the building of the temple itself, with a boy, a construction site, and something feeding on him in the dark. Before I take you further into that story, I need to show you the text, because what I'm about to tell you is not in your Bible. It is not in 1 Kings, where Solomon's building of the temple is recorded. It is not in 2 Chronicles, where the dedication of the temple is described. It is not in Proverbs or Ecclesiastes or the Song of Songs. What I'm about to show you exists in 16 Greek manuscripts, copied and preserved across 15 centuries, largely unknown outside the academic world. The Testament of Solomon, composed somewhere between the 1st and 3rd centuries of the Common Era, drawing on sources considerably older than its final written form. The text presents itself as Solomon's own account, in Solomon's own voice, of how the temple was actually built. Not the official history, the complete one. And the complete one begins with a ring. When Solomon sees what is happening to the boy, the nightly draining, the unexplained wasting, he prays. The archangel Michael appears. He delivers a ring, not a decorative ring, a ring bearing a seal, a specific mark, a divine sigil, engraved directly onto the band. The text describes what the ring does. It gives Solomon authority not to destroy supernatural forces, but to summon them, to bind them, to compel them to answer questions they would otherwise never answer. I want to pause there, because that detail, the ring arriving from Michael, the ring given by God's own archangel to enable the building of the temple, that detail is in 16 manuscripts, and no one told you about it. Why? Solomon presses the ring to the chest of the boy. This is the first act recorded in the Testament, not a prayer, not a blessing. The physical act of pressing the divine seal against the body of someone being consumed by something. What happens next is described in exact detail. The spirit, Orneas, the text names it, is pulled out, not destroyed, captured. And here is where I see the mind of Solomon at work in a way I did not expect the first time I read this. Solomon could have destroyed Orneas. The ring gave him authority over the spirit. He had the power to end it. He chose not to. Instead, he interrogated it. What is your name? What harm do you do? How are you defeated? And then, this is the move that defines everything that follows. Solomon asked Orneas to do something. He asked it to deliver a message to a larger spirit. He used the smaller demon to catch the bigger one. A trap within a trap. Orneas becomes the bait, and the larger spirit, drawn by the message, unaware of what it is walking into, arrives before Solomon. Its name is Beelzebul. Before I tell you what happened when Beelzebul arrived, I need to show you the system. Because what Solomon built through these encounters was not a collection of folklore, it was a database. A systematically constructed record of every major force of disruption in the spiritual hierarchy. Its name, its function, its weakness, its foiling agent. The ring's compulsion is described precisely in the text. It operates like a court oath. The spirit summoned before Solomon is under obligation to answer truthfully. It cannot lie. It cannot deflect. It can resist. Some do, and the text records the difficulty Solomon has in certain encounters. But it cannot deceive. Every interrogation follows the same structure. Solomon asks, "What is your name?" The spirit is compelled to answer. Solomon asks, What harm do you do? The spirit describes its methods. Solomon asks, who foils you? And here is the moment. The spirit, bound by the ring's authority, must name the angel or force that neutralizes it. It must confess its own weakness. And Solomon writes it down. I want you to understand what Solomon is building. He is not building a list of enemies. He is building an encyclopedia of vulnerabilities. Every spirit that stands before him leaves having given Solomon the exact information needed to undo it. Not by force, not by power greater than the spirit's power. By information the spirit itself provided under the compulsion of the ring. The trap was never a weapon, the trap was a procedure. Now, Beelzebul comes before Solomon, the greatest of them. And the first thing Beelzebul says, the very first thing, is a declaration. He calls himself the prince of all demons, not a prince, not one of the princes. The prince, the hierarchy of hell, in Beelzebul's own testimony, places him at the summit. Solomon looks at the most powerful demonic force in the spiritual hierarchy and says, tell me what you do. Beelzebul answers. He causes destruction through tyrants. He instigates wars. He creates divisions between people who should be united. He causes lust and murder. He weakens the effect of the divine name when it is spoken without sincerity. That last point is worth holding. Beelzebul's particular domain is the corruption of intention, the degradation of genuine prayer, the contamination of real faith with hollow performance. He does not primarily work through spectacular evil. He works through the small, incremental hollowing out of sincerity. The person who says the right words without meaning them. The prayer recited from memory, without presence. The declaration made in the name of God by someone whose mind is elsewhere. That is Beelzebul's territory. Solomon listens. And then he asks the third question. Who foils you? What Beelzebul says next is the revelation that stopped me when I first read it. I was 24 years old. It was my first year at SOS. I'd been given access through a supervisor to a set of photocopied manuscript pages, partial Greek text with facing transliteration, not yet available in the edition I would later work with. I read the passage where Beelzebul, under the compulsion of Solomon's ring, names his foiling agent, and I sat with it for a very long time. The foiling agent is not an archangel. It is not God acting directly. It is not a divine force descending from above. Beelzebul's foiling agent is named Abezethibou. Abezethibou is himself a demon, a lesser figure in the demonic hierarchy, one who later, the text records, turns against Beelzebul's own forces. The most powerful demon in the spiritual hierarchy has as its primary weakness not a heavenly power, but an internal opposition. Hell is not unified. Hell has factions. Hell has figures who, for their own reasons, the text does not explain those reasons, act in ways that neutralize the power of the hierarchy's leader. And Solomon, in this moment, grasps the full implication. He is not facing a monolithic enemy. He is facing a structure with internal contradictions. An entity that calls itself the prince of all demons cannot in fact rely on the loyalty of everything beneath it. There is something inside the structure that opposes it, and that something under the right conditions works against it. I remember setting the manuscript pages down and thinking, this is not a religious text, this is strategic intelligence. Solomon had just extracted, from the most powerful adversary he would ever face, the location of its structural weakness, not by defeating it, by making it talk. There is one more figure I need to show you before I take you to the principle, because the Testament of Solomon does something extraordinary that most readers miss. It confirms itself. The demon Asmodeus appears later in the text. Asmodeus is the force of destruction of marriages, the spirit of lust, and the dissolution of covenantal bonds. He is considered in the hierarchy second, only to Beelzebul in destructive power. And when Solomon interrogates him, he asks the standard questions. When Solomon asks, who foils Asmodeus, the demon reveals it. He is neutralized by the liver and gall of a specific fish, burnt as incense. The smoke. Now look at the Book of Tobit. Tobit is a text composed somewhere between the 3rd and 2nd centuries before the Common Era. It predates the Testament of Solomon by several centuries. It exists in the canonical scriptures of Catholic and Orthodox Christianity. In Tobit, a young man named Tobias is guided by the angel Raphael. Raphael tells him to take the liver and gall of a fish, burn it. The smoke will drive out a demon tormenting his future wife. The demon being driven out is Asmodeus, the same demon, the same weakness, the same remedy, centuries apart, different texts, different contexts, different languages, the same confession. What the Testament of Solomon records as Asmodeus confessing under interrogation, his own weakness, extracted by Solomon's legal procedure, is confirmed independently in a text written centuries before the Testament existed in its final form. The confession in the Testament is not invented, it is preserved. Solomon's interrogation extracted something real, and it was real enough that it survived in two separate streams of tradition, unconnected, across hundreds of years. Here is something the scholars have observed that I find almost unbearably precise. The Testament of Solomon records 72 demons. 72. In the book of Genesis, chapter 10, there is a passage known as the Table of Nations. It catalogues the peoples of the earth, the descendants of Noah's sons, spreading across the world after the flood. The traditional count of those nations is 72. 72 peoples, 72 languages, 72 regions of the earth. Each nation in ancient Jewish theological understanding has a corresponding spiritual patron, a celestial being assigned to it. And where there is a heavenly patron, there is, in the adversarial tradition, a corresponding demonic counterpart. 72 nations, 72 demonic entities. When Solomon had interrogated and bound all 72, he did not merely have authority over a collection of individual spirits. He had authority over the spiritual architecture of the entire world. Every people, every language, every region. The temple could not have been built by human labor alone. That is the text's implicit claim. To build something that would stand as a center for all peoples, Solomon needed dominion over the forces that resist such unity. He achieved that dominion not by war. He achieved it by conversation. 72 interrogations, 72 confessions, each one adding to the record, each one giving him what the Spirit had no choice but to give. I want to show you something before we leave the ancient world, because this story does not belong only to the Jewish tradition. In the Quran, Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 82, and Surah Saba, verses 12 through 14, the jinn are described as being subjected to Suleiman, subjected, compelled, bound to his authority. The Quran does not describe a military victory. It describes a subjugation, a bringing under authority of forces that would otherwise be ungovernable. Islamic tradition, particularly the Sufi commentaries that developed around these verses, elaborates on the mechanism. The key is the Ism al-Azam, the greatest name of God. A name of such power that no jinn, no spiritual force, no adversarial entity can withstand it when spoken correctly. The mechanism is identical to Solomon's ring, a name-based compulsion that the spirit cannot overcome. Not power greater than the spirit's power. A name, an authority, a legal foundation so fundamental that the spirit cannot refuse to acknowledge it. Jewish tradition, the ring and the seal. Islamic tradition, the Ism al-Azam. Two traditions, two texts, two languages, one mechanism. And in West Africa, where I grew up, in Yoruba theology, the trickster deity Isu is not defeated by any force you can bring to bear on him. Isu is neutralized by one thing, his praise names. The elder who knows Isu's praise names and speaks them correctly cannot be harmed by him. The names bind him, not because the names are magic, because the names establish the relationship correctly. They assert what Isu is, what he does, and what the limits of his authority actually are. You speak his names, you define him. He cannot operate outside the definition. 3 traditions, 3 continents, 3 millennia. The same operational principle. To name something precisely is to begin to govern it. Now I want to say the thing that the title promises. The trap Solomon set for Beelzebul, and for every demon that followed, was not the ring. The ring was a tool, The trap was what the ring made possible. It was a legal architecture, a procedure in which every spirit brought before Solomon was compelled to participate in its own containment. The ring forced truth-telling, but Solomon designed the questions. He could have asked anything. He asked, "What is your name? What do you do? Who foils you?" 3 questions every time, 72 interrogations. He was not interested in defeating them by overpowering them. He was interested in building the complete record. And the record, once built, meant that no spirit in the hierarchy had any remaining advantage of concealment. Every name was known, every method was documented, every weakness was on record. The trap was that once you have confessed your name, your function, and your vulnerability, you have given your captor everything needed to neutralize you at any point in the future. You are not just bound in that moment, you are comprehensively described. And what is comprehensively described can be comprehensively addressed. Solomon did not imprison all 72 and hope they would stay contained. He built a system where their containment was derived from their own testimony. The demons put themselves in the trap. Solomon simply designed the procedure. I want to tell you about something my grandmother said. Not the grandmother who gave me the threshold object. That story belongs to another video. This is my father's mother, Mama Ugochi. She died when I was 19, the same year I left for SOAS London. She was not educated in the way my father was. He had a doctorate from University College London. She had never left southeastern Nigeria. She had outlived 2 husbands and raised 8 children. She was the most formidable person I have ever known. When something frightened Mama Ugochi, and very little did, she had a phrase, not a prayer, not an invocation, not a ritual with steps and preparations. 3 words. I know your name. She said it quietly. Not to anyone in particular, at least not to anyone visible. When she was afraid, when she sensed something wrong, when the night felt like it was pressing too close. I know your name. I thought at 15 or 16 that it was her way of saying she was not afraid, that it was psychological, a statement of courage, not a functional act. The kind of thing people say to make themselves feel better in the dark. I understood what it actually was only when I read Solomon's interrogation of Beelzebul, when I read the moment where Beelzebul, compelled by the ring, confesses his name and his methods and his weakness, and Solomon, in possession of that confession, has him. Not because Solomon is stronger, because Solomon knows. Mama Ugochi was not asserting courage. She was asserting the one thing every spirit in the Testament of Solomon cannot escape. She was claiming the authority that the ring gives Solomon, the authority of the named. You cannot operate in secret when your name is known. You cannot function through concealment when someone is standing there, clearly stating that they know what you are. You cannot do to someone what you can do to someone who does not know your name. Because Solomon's entire system rests on one principle. The moment the name is named, the relationship changes. The spirit is no longer an unknown force. It is a documented entity with a known weakness and a known foiling agent. It is under the same compulsion that Beelzebul was under when he stood before Solomon's ring. My grandmother did not know the Testament of Solomon. She did not know the 72 interrogations. She had never seen the Greek manuscripts preserved in 16 copies. She knew the operational principle. 3 words. I know your name. Let me bring this forward to where you are. Because this is the question the title actually promises. Not what Solomon did 3,000 years ago. What Solomon's method means in your life today. The principle, stated as precisely as I can. The most powerful move in any spiritual confrontation is not greater force. It is greater information. When something is disrupting your life, when there is a pattern of destruction that returns, a specific category of harm that arrives repeatedly, a force you feel but cannot name, the approach Solomon modeled is not to overwhelm it, it is to interrogate it. The deliverance traditions across West Africa, across the Black Church in America, across Catholic and Orthodox practice, when they work because the first act is identification. Name yourself. What is this? What does it operate through? Where does it have access? Before the binding comes the naming. Solomon never bound anything he had not first interrogated. Not one of the 72. The interrogation preceded the binding every time, because what is bound without being named remains fundamentally unknown. It can be released, unrecognized, and returned through the same opening it always used. But what is named, specifically, precisely, accurately named, is contained differently. Its methods are known. Its foiling agent is on record. Its concealment is gone. Before every single interrogation in the Testament of Solomon, Solomon speaks a specific phrase. It appears in the text before each encounter. I adjure you by the God who created heaven and earth. 7 words. Not a magic formula, not an incantation, a declaration of hierarchy. Solomon is asserting, before he says anything else, the fundamental structure of authority. God created heaven and earth. That means the God who made everything that exists, including the spirit standing before me, is the foundation of this encounter. You, the spirit being addressed, exist within that created order. I, Solomon, am speaking within that created order. The ground of this conversation is not my power against yours. The ground of this conversation is the authority of what made both of us. And on that ground, you are required to answer. This is not Solomon claiming power greater than the Spirit's power. This is Solomon establishing the framework within which the Spirit has no standing to refuse. The adjuration is not power. The adjuration is positioning. Solomon stood in the right place before he asked a single question. That was the trap, not the ring, the positioning. Let me give you the method clearly. First, when you suspect spiritual interference, when there is a pattern in your life that does not respond to ordinary address, when the same disruption returns through different forms, do not begin by fighting it. Begin by naming it. Ask, in whatever form is natural to your tradition, what is this? What does it operate through? Where does it have access? This is the interrogation posture, not weakness, not surrender, the first move of Solomon's entire system. Second, establish the framework before you say anything else. Solomon always began with the adjuration, the declaration of divine authority as the ground of the encounter. Your equivalent, in your own tradition and your own words, is any genuine declaration of the ultimate authority you are standing within, not a formula. A genuine statement of what you know to be true about the structure of reality. The ground of this encounter is not my power versus yours. The ground is what made both of us, and on that ground, name what you are facing. Third, hold what you learn. Solomon wrote it down. 72 confessions, documented. He did not defeat each spirit once and forget the method. He kept the record. When you understand how something has been operating in your life, when you recognize its pattern and its point of access and its method, hold that knowledge. Name it. Keep the name. Do not let the pattern become anonymous again, because anonymous forces operate through concealment. Named forces operate in the open. And what operates in the open can be addressed directly. The Testament of Solomon records 72 interrogations, 72 confessions, extracted not by force, but by the compulsion to answer within the framework of divine authority. 72 spirits that arrived before Solomon carrying everything they had, and left having given him everything he needed. The trap was not the ring. The ring was the instrument that made the procedure possible. The trap was the procedure itself. A legal architecture so precise that the spirits had no option but to participate in their own containment. And what Solomon understood, what I think Mama Ugochi understood in southeastern Nigeria, without having read a word of the Greek manuscripts, is that knowledge changes the terms of any encounter. The force that relies on being unnamed cannot function the same way when it has been named. The spirit that operates in darkness cannot operate the same way in light. The trap is always the same. It is not force, it is attention. Sustained, specific, deliberate attention to what something actually is. Name it, and you have begun. Name it precisely, and you have almost finished. Name it and hold the name, and you have what Solomon had. Not a ring, a record. And a record cannot be taken from you. My grandmother did not leave me a textbook. She did not give me instructions with steps and stages and preparations. She left me 3 words. 3 words that, when I finally understood what Solomon had done in those 72 interrogations, I recognized as the operational core of everything. I know your name. If there is something in your life right now that has been operating in the dark, a pattern you have circled around but not named, a disruption you have addressed around the edges but not at its source, try what Solomon tried. Not force, not volume. Ask it to name itself. And then, before anything else, from the ground of whatever authority you stand within, I adjure you by the God who created heaven and earth, tell me what you are. Solomon built the temple with what came next. I know your name.